Hi, welcome to beginner series 016. Today I would like us to go straight to what has been awaited for all that time. Now that is what we call the actual taking off. The taking off that is done from the drawings. So today it will be a very exciting session because you will now be seeing practically how to take off or how to do measurements when provided with drawings. So that's going to be an exciting moment, and before we indulge into it, I will urge you that please, if you haven't made a subscription, please do so, because from this time onwards the sessions are just going to be getting better and better. So please take a second, click the subscription button, and then we move on into what we need to cover today. Well, that second was for you to make a subscription, and I believe you have done so. Thank you very much. So we'll go straight to preparing a taking off list. For this session, or for this part of estimation that we are undertaking, I would like us to go through a simple drawing, and that is the one that has been presented there. Thereafter, we'll now go to a more complicated drawings and so on. So for this one, I would like to cover even those who are doing it for examining purposes, or those who are using the traditional dimension papers. So in this case, I would like us to just cover how to take off this on the traditional dimension papers. Thereafter, we'll see how we can transfer that information to now the bills of quantities, and then we'll be using Excel version for that matter. After that, this is complete, we do up to finishes, and then we now go to a more complicated drawing, including the foundations, the footings, and so on. But for now, we'd rely on a more simpler one, then we cover it as it should be. So straight to what we intend to cover today, let's do this. So we have this in place. Now this is our traditional taking off. So we'd like to see, when you are presented with this and you have a drawing, how do you go about that? So first of all, you'll write the title of the project that you are dealing with. And the title of the project, if you open the drawing, the title of the project is normally at the bottom corner. I mean, yes, at the bottom bar of that particular drawing, or you might even find it to the right side in most cases, to those that have dealt with. So you go to the project title. Okay, from there, that is where you can title your work in terms of what you are measuring. Okay, so once you have that title, for instance, you will talk about proposed residential development for Mr. Sam, okay, on plot number. You can state the plot number as say 382 stroke 201, and so on. So that is just a typical example where you will how you can write your title for what you are intending to do in terms of title of you are taking off. So once that is done, then you can state what are you intending to measure. So for our session today, we are intending to measure substructure works. Okay, so substructure works, the rule that we had talked about is saying that we need to provide it as a provisional. Okay, all provisional. And the reason for stating it as all provisional was well explained, and I will emphasize again, is because when you are measuring substructures or taking off substructures, the items, most of them are not into finality. Most of the items that you are taking off in that case are subject to change later on while you come to do the actual construction, where you'll be able to ascertain the quantities. For instance, excavations. So in that case, then you realize that it's always safer that you provide them as all provisional, because they are later on going to be adjusted once the construction kicks off. So that is done. Once you have your title, the project, and then you've set it substructure or provisional, then you will indicate what we call a taking off list. Okay, this one you can as well call it a trade order. Okay, or you can call it item list of items, or item list, whichever way, item list. Okay, so this one simply indicates the items in which you would like to measure or you'd like to take off as you are doing for that particular part of the taking off. So once you have your work underlined in that order, you already have everything put in place, then you go ahead and have what you call the taking off list. So in the taking off list, you are expected to list the items which you are going to cover under that particular taking off. So in that case, you will just list your items. For instance, item 1, you state what item 1 is. Okay, item 1. So normally this is always my approach. When you understand so well the concept of construction, it's always important that you understand now the underlying concept which is required for you, how you normally undertake the work. When you understand that process, it's always easier for you to have these items even without having to make a reference. So for instance, you ask yourself, when you get to construction site, what are you expected to do, and in that order. If you follow that order, then it will always be easier for you to have these items written or indicated, or you having to indicate them without having any struggle. So that is normally my approach, and that is what I always advise my students to approach it with. Understand the order of construction. If you don't have idea, then you will understand from this channel what I'm going to tell you. So for instance, you get to site. What is the first item that you are expected to do here? Of course, you'll deal with the preliminary items, things to do with utilities connection, things to do with electricity, security, maybe building up site office and so on. But all those will come later on. So they are not items that would measure at this stage. Okay, for this stage we've just picked now the simpler approach. So once you have this, then what are you expected to undertake? Okay, for me, if I would go to site and then I want to start construction right away without considering those other items, then I will do what we call site clearance. Okay, I will undertake site clearance. That would be my first item. So this is the approach that I'm urging you that we adopt, that particular process in which construction is done on site, so that when you follow it that way, it will be easier for you to have these items coming out without any struggle. So once you've done your site clearance, what is it that next you should be doing? So I'm assuming that you need to do what we call topsoil excavation. Okay, yes, so that should be your second item. So once you have site clearance, then you have topsoil excavation. So once you've done the topsoil excavation, what should be coming next? Okay, in that order until we reach the final item. So after the topsoil excavation, then you can have excavation. You can have mass excavation. To reduce levels. So what does that mean? Normally, you will find that sites are different. Of course, we understand that sites are very unique in almost all aspects. So when you have a site that will require that after you've removed the topsoil is normally separated from the other parts of the other types of the excavations, and the reason is topsoil is rich in nutrients. That is a biological concept. Topsoil is rich in nutrients. So in some cases it will be stored, or it will be just dumped on a spoil heap within the site, and later on be reused for other items like landscaping. That is basically for sustainability purposes. So in that case, you always provide for topsoil excavation on a separate excavation. So once you have site clearance, topsoil excavation, you can do mass excavation to reduce levels, and also then next you can do what you call a trench excavation. Okay, now you've done site clearance, you've done the topsoil excavation, you've done mass excavations if they're available in that case, and then you're now doing the trench excavation, excavate for the trenches. Okay, in this case now the what can be coming next is extra over. Okay, extra over excavation for excavating in rock. You now realize that it was so crucial that we understand these words and the concepts. We talked about extra over concept, and in this case we meant that an extra over item is an item that is deemed to have been measured elsewhere, but then is now supposed to be done again based on the special ways in which it will be treated. And the special ways for quantity surveyor would mean it will be attracting additional costs, or costs beyond what has been where it was assumed to be measured at first. You realize that you are doing trench excavation, and the assumption is you are doing the trench excavation on a normal soil or a normal earthwork. Okay, but then in the event that you realize that there are rocks within that particular site, then you have to provide for the same. And how do you do that in terms of how do you cover for that? You do that as an extra over item. So in first instance, you do your excavation fully, where you are excavating the whole of what is available in terms of the normal soil. Okay, you do up to the maximum expected depth, and also whenever rock appears, then you also measure for that particular rock. Okay, so that is what that means. So we done site clearance, topsoil excavation, mass excavation, reduce levels, trench excavation, extra over excavation for excavating in rock. Then we would have items. So one is keeping excavations free from water. That is an item, or you can call it dewatering, whichever that you'd like to say. And then you have what we call planking and strutting. So what does that mean? Planking and strutting simply means supports. Okay, you can have it as supports to the sides of foundations. So these are just precautionary measures taken to ensure that whatever that has been excavated does not get back to the trenches that have been done, or they do not cause harm by coming back and hitting the workmen for that case. So that is what we cover next. And then we have site clearance, topsoil excavations, planking and strutting. So from here, then we can do now what we call the concrete works. I told you that we are following that order. So we can go to concrete works. So concrete works, we can mention that and say that we have so at number 8, so under concrete works, what are the concrete elements that we are expected to measure? So one, we can talk about concrete blinding. Concrete blinding as item 1. Then another one, you can have concrete footing. Okay, yeah, for now we just be measuring on the simple plan that I've shown, because in concrete work there might be more items. For instance, you can talk about columns, you can talk about pad footings and so on, but for now we are just going to measure on it. So we've talked about concrete blinding, concrete footing next, and then after the footing, and then any other item that is going to be associated with the concrete. You can have for instance, you can have the concrete slab, okay, concrete slab. But because this type of trade that we are using to prepare our bills of quantities is one that is meant to make your work even easier. For that case, there are items that are going to be falling later on in terms of classifications, but they are measured under this item. And the reason is, for instance, you have let me just add it here. You have, for instance, you have BRC. BRC, for those who are not aware, in full means British Reinforced Concrete. British Reinforced Concrete. Okay, so that is the mesh that is going to be used to reinforce the slab. So the items that are associated with the slab can be measured underneath it within this particular order. So we have concrete slab, the BRC. We also have damp, can call it the DPM or damp proof membrane. Okay, so the damp proof membrane, as we had discussed, I'll just repeat, is now the polythene that is meant to avoid or to prevent the rising damp from the ground level to the floor in that given case. So we've talked about the damp proof membrane. Then another one would be, okay, so we'll have items like hardcore filling, then we'll also have maram blinding. Okay, maram blinding on top of the hardcore. So you realize that we are just following the order in which these items have been done. First of all, we got to site, we did the clearance, then we did earthworks, excavations. Once the excavations are done, then we go to concrete work. So under concrete work is where we covered the concrete blinding, concrete footing. We've done the concrete slab, the BRC. We've done the damp proof membrane, hardcore filling, maram blinding. So in that case, technically, we've done up to the slab. Okay. But then you realize that the other items we've not taken into consideration, and those items include, I want us to insert them somewhere before we do the hardcore filling and the maram blinding and DPM. So we can do substructure walling, So after the walling, then we can also do what we call the damp proof, the DPC. Okay, you'll see it being abbreviated as DPC. So this is a damp proof course. Just like the damp proof membrane that is now covering on that is now laid on top of the maram, to ensure that the rising damp does not affect the other part, the floor. Now the damp proof course is now put on top of the lining of the wall, the substructure wall, so that the same damp that you're preventing does not rise on the wall upwards or through capillary action for that case. So we've talked about, we've done the walling, we've done about the DPC, hardcore filling, maram blinding. So after maram blinding, that is where now you have, now after the blinding, you now have the BRC that we talked about. Okay, actually we have, on top of the blinding, you water it well, and then you have what we call the DPM. So after the DPM is in place, then you now do the BRC. So from the BRC, you now have what we call, let's just see this, BRC, DPM. Then we have talk about formwork. Okay, formwork to sides of slab. So you set up the formwork that is going to contain the wet concrete that has been poured for the slab, and then also concrete works, concrete blinding, concrete footing. We have reinforcement that we need to insert there, and then we also have formwork to footing. Okay, well, so we've covered those items. Let's see whatever that is missing from the main list, and then we adjust the same. So we've talked about, okay, so we'll consider also cutting trees, so that we see how that is handled as well. So at first we'll consider cutting trees as well from in our measurement. Cutting trees, site clearance. Okay, we've done oversight excavation. So oversight excavation is also the topsoil excavation. Site clearance, topsoil excavation, or you can also call it the oversight excavation. Okay, so the alternatives that have been, names that have been given, you don't have to have that at in your measurement at a particular time. You can just have any of them because they mean the one and the same thing. So we've talked about trench excavation, rock excavation, keep all excavations free from water, then uphold all sides of excavation. That is what we refer to as planking and strutting. Then we went to concrete work. We did concrete blinding, concrete footing, concrete slab, BRC, the polythene sheeting. So polythene sheeting, blinding, footing, concrete footing. From the footing we did slab, and then BRC. Okay, concrete footing is the concrete blinding, concrete footing, reinforcement, concrete footing. No, let's do away with this. So after the blinding we talk about concrete footing, concrete slab, BRC. So after BRC is where we do polythene sheeting. After BRC is polythene sheeting, that is the DPM. Alternatively, you can call it polythene sheeting. Okay, so from there we have foam sinking in hardcore and concrete thicknessing. So we'll also cover these, but then these two items we'll just talk about them because they will not be falling under this. So foam sinking and then concrete thicknessing. So we'll touch on what they are. However, they will not, for these of our basic drawing, they will not be forming part of the measurements. Then we have sawn formwork. So we talked about the formwork as well for the foundations. After that, formwork to sides. So we just describe it as one. Sawn formwork. So the formwork will now going to be for the slab and also for the one that we covered as concrete footing. They'll be described together. Then we go to walling, DPC. Okay, go to substructure walling, and then we go to DPC. Okay, so you can see the order which I obeyed is what is replicated here. DPC. Then we have we'll talk about bonding as well, so let's just insert it. We'll talk about the bonding, we'll explain what that is and how that is measured. Then hardcore filling, maram blinding, hardcore filling, stone dust blinding, or the maram blinding, one and the same thing. Hardcore filling stroke no, not that one, maram blinding stroke stone dust blinding. So this is basically just blinding the surfaces of the hardcore, which you'll come to see as well. Then we have insecticide treatment. Okay. Insecticide treatment, and then we go to the other item, weed killer. That is one and the same thing. Weed killer and insecticide treatment is the other one is insecticide treatment, which is mostly used for instance the termido. So weed killer, you can incorporate it if at all there are weeds that you'll need to do away with. Talk about weed killer. Finishes to the planes, and then filling around foundations, or what we call backfilling. So finishes to planes, and then backfilling, or filling around foundations. You call it, alternatively you can call it backfilling. Okay, backfilling with excavated materials. Filling around foundations. Okay, so this is what we refer to also as a backfilling. So in this case, we have an exhaustive list that is covering most of the items of concern for our coverage for this particular session. So once you have this, I've told you that the easiest way to master all that we have covered today is by the basis of understanding the process in which the working is done. Okay. So when you understand the process, it's easier for you to generate this list without any problem. Okay, so to even make these sessions better, I'm going to have in our next session a video that is showing you these items, most of the items, so that you are able to understand how they are done, and also then now when we will be measuring them, it will be easier for you to put into perspective when I talk about the DPM, when I talk about the BRC, so that it's not only theoretical, but it's also something that you can see and be able to relate. So in that manner, it will be so easier for us to follow and master this list, so that whenever you are given any drawing, it's easier for you to do it without any trouble. So I believe that is the best approach that we can employ, we can adopt for our coverages, so that it's easier and you benefit from these sessions as they are meant to be. So I would urge you to stay tuned, because all these that we've measured are going to be shown in our next video. They are going to be shown in terms of the typical items that we are talking about for all the items. And thereafter we relate to our drawing, and then we do taking off or measurements. So at the end of the day, all these items, once we cover all of them, it will be so easy for you to do your measurements for any other building, any other drawing that is provided. So I believe this is the best approach, and at the end of the day, you shall have benefited fully from this channel. So thank you very much for being part of the channel. Thank you very much for watching this video. I would urge you that before you leave, please make a subscription to it, because the sessions are getting to be even more interesting as we go on. Stay on, keep tuned, and also turn on the notification button, so that whenever the sessions drop, you are here to take note, you are here to learn and grow from this channel immensely. I want to thank you so much, and trust that you'll have a wonderful time till we meet again in our next session. Stay tuned and have a wonderful time. Thank you. Bye bye.